In just 5 days, Canadians will head to the polls and decide whether or not Justin Trudeau deserves to remain Prime Minister. And over the last 4 years, he has demonstrated time and time again that he is unworthy of that office. He is unworthy of the trust Canadians placed in him 4 years ago to respect taxpayer dollars and safeguard our democracy against corruption. His ongoing scandals and cover-ups have caused Canadians to lose faith in the integrity of their government and in their democracy, and have reinforced their worst perceptions of politicians who are only in it for themselves. But they have also exposed shortcomings in Canada's checks and balances on powerful politicians. For breaking the Conflict of Interest Act not only once, but twice, Justin Trudeau faced absolutely no consequences. That's because there are no consequences attached under the law. Now, Canadians expect accountability from their leaders, and that's what I will deliver. And that's why today I'm pleased to announce that as part of our 100-day action plan, a new Conservative government will introduce legislation for stiff penalties of up to $20,000 for violating the Conflict of Interest Act. We will establish consequences for violations that do not currently have any, and we will ensure that these penalties are proportional to the severity of the violation and the seniority of the offender. This will deter future politicians from breaking ethics laws.
Canadians want there to be accountability for their people in Parliament, and that's what I'm going to give them. That's why I'm happy to announce that as part of our 100-day action plan, a new Conservative government will introduce a legislative measure to impose stiff penalties of up to $20,000 for violations of the Conflict of Interest Act. There will be consequences for violations, whereas now there are none. And we will ensure that those penalties are proportional to the severity of the offence and the seniority of the person responsible. That will dissuade future politicians from violating the legislation.
New measures to bring real accountability and transparency to government. We'll increase the oversight powers of the lobbying and ethics commissioners to hold politicians to account. We'll prohibit those charged with a criminal offence from lobbying for changes to laws that would impact their criminal proceeding. We'll introduce legislative reforms to protect whistleblowers from retaliation, and we will close the loophole in the Conflict of Interest Act that allowed Bill Morneau to own shares in his private corporation through a numbered company while serving as a Minister of the Crown. Now, these measures are in addition to the accountability pledges I have already made in this campaign. A judicial inquiry that will end Justin Trudeau's cover-up and get to the bottom of the SNC-Lavalin corruption scandal. And the No More Cover-Ups Act that will prevent politicians from using cabinet confidence to block RCMP investigations. It's all part of our 100-day action plan to show Canadians exactly how a new Conservative majority government will get to work right away to help them get ahead, with real, concrete measures that will lower Canadians' taxes and put more money in their pockets right off the bat. But if Justin Trudeau gets his way and he's allowed to remain the Prime Minister with the NDP propping him up, imagine what his first 100 days will look like. Weeks of backroom negotiations, discussions over which NDP MPs will be named to his cabinet, and endless demands from the NDP for Trudeau to hike taxes so he can stay in power.
That is part of our 100-day action plan to show Canadians how a Conservative government with a majority will immediately get down to work to help them to get ahead, with concrete measures that will lower taxes for Canadians and put more money in their pockets right now. But if Justin Trudeau remains Prime Minister with the help of the NDP, imagine what the first 100 days will look like for him. Many backroom negotiations and discussions as to which NDP members will be appointed to cabinet, and endless demands from the NDP for higher taxes so that Justin Trudeau can stay in power.
On October 21st, Canadians will make a choice. The choice between a Justin Trudeau NDP coalition that will cost you thousands of dollars more, and a new Conservative majority government that will make life more affordable for all Canadians. Throughout this campaign, I have announced several new ways my government will lower taxes and put more money in the pockets of Canadians. The choice between a Trudeau NDP coalition that will spend its first 100 days negotiating behind closed doors over just how high your taxes will go, and a Conservative majority that will spend its first 100 days lowering your taxes and putting more money in your pockets.
The choice between a Trudeau NDP coalition that will spend their first 100 days negotiating behind closed doors to see how much they can raise taxes by, and a majority Conservative government that will spend its first 100 days lowering your taxes so that you can have more in your pockets right away.
We're going to do this by scrapping the carbon tax, job number one. We're going to take the GST off of home heating bills. We're going to boost the RESP, increase the age credit for seniors, bring back tax credits for taking transit and for your kids' activities, and implementing a universal tax cut for everyone. A family of four living right here in Essex under our Conservative plan would get up to $3,264 back in their pockets every year to help them get ahead. But on October 21st, Canadians will also pass judgment on Justin Trudeau's personal conduct, and they get to decide if a Prime Minister who has abused the power of his office as badly as he has and as often as he has deserves to get re-elected. Trudeau was found guilty by the Ethics Commissioner for breaking the Conflict of Interest Act not once, but twice in just 4 years. Now, Canadians expect accountability when their leaders break the law and break their trust. They expect strong democratic institutions that have the power to investigate corrupt politicians to the fullest extent. And they expect appropriate punishments for politicians who get caught. And that's exactly what I will deliver.
Canadians want accountability when their leaders break their trust. And we need democratic institutions that can investigate corrupt politicians, and they want appropriate penalties for politicians that get caught. And that's exactly what I will be offering.
The ultimate judgment of a Prime Minister's conduct is left to the people in an election. In 2015, Justin Trudeau promised he would be ethical and accountable, and every day since then, he has proven that he is not as advertised. Time and time again, he and his ministers have abused the power of their office for their own personal gain. And furthermore, Justin Trudeau is now desperately trying to salvage his job by doing a coalition deal with the NDP. a coalition Canadians can't afford. Higher taxes, more deficits, fewer jobs, and less money in your pockets. The NDP fought side by side with Conservatives against Justin Trudeau's corruption in the SNC-Lavalin scandal, but now we see what they're really made of. When they found they had a shot at power by being the junior partner in the coalition Canadians can't afford, their principles went out the window. We now see that they are willing to prop up a corrupt Prime Minister, a Prime Minister who has lied, and a Prime Minister who so willingly deceived and broke the law, who simply cannot be entrusted with the duties and responsibilities of governing for Canada.
On October 21st, Canadians will make a choice between Justin Trudeau, who abused his power, violated the law for his friends, and tried to prevent his critics from speaking, and a new Conservative government that will uphold the rule of law, respect our democratic institutions, and make sure that there is accountability and transparency in government, while at the same time helping Canadians to get ahead.
Have a choice between Justin Trudeau, who abuses his power, bends the law for his friends, attempts to silence his critics, and destroys their reputations, and a new Conservative government who will uphold the rule of law, respect our democratic institutions, introduce measures to bring real accountability and transparency to government while helping all Canadians get ahead. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Ready for your question.
Good afternoon, Mr. Scheer. Katie Simpson, CBC News. This afternoon, you'll be going to the riding of Hamilton West and Castor-Dundas to campaign with your local candidate there. That is the riding where Philomena Tassi is running. She was a member of Justin Trudeau's cabinet, but as she's posted online, her mother died during the campaign, and today is the day they're burying her mother. Why are you going to campaign there on the same day she's burying her mother?
Well, of course, my heartfelt condolences go out to Miss Tassi. I can only imagine the pain she's going through. I have some idea, as I lost my mother myself during a leadership race, and so I certainly send her my best wishes and my condolences, my heartfelt sympathies. And as she posted online, the family is requesting for donations to be made to a charity, and that's what I've done.
So I'm curious as to why you're still going to go there if I know that given what's gone on, given what's happened, I'm curious as to why the campaign maybe didn't go to a neighboring riding. Why not go to another riding, given what the local candidate is going through right now?
Yeah, and as I said, I can understand that she's going through a lot right now, and that is why I wanted to show my support by making a donation to the charity she requested. As someone who lost my own mother during the leadership race, it's a tough thing to go through, and I'm hoping she's getting the love and support that she needs from her family and friends.
Bonjour, Monsieur Scheer. Catherine Lévesque, La Presse Canadienne. On vous a
La Presse Canadienne, we still have not heard from you about the situation in Catalonia and the independent Catalan leaders who have been convicted. Mr. Legault denounced that situation yesterday. I'm wondering what your position is. I think that's an issue for the Spanish government. Also, have you and your team had any discussions with people in the Bloc Québécois this week? No, not at all. You have not spoken to them? Are you going to talk to them? Well, I will continue to speak to Quebecers directly to win their confidence so that we can have a majority Conservative government with an extraordinary group of Quebec MPs.
Hi, it's Annie Bergeron-Oliver with CTV National News. You've said that Trudeau caved to Donald Trump when it comes to the new NAFTA, and obviously this is an agreement that's important to a lot of people in the Windsor area. I'm wondering if you would ratify that within your first 100 days, and what you would say to Mr. Trump during your first conversations with him as Prime Minister.
Well, first of all, it's quite clear that Justin Trudeau did cave to Donald Trump, and he has the audacity to suggest that others were calling for him to cave. He was the one who had to sign a last-minute deal, had to take every concession that Donald Trump forced onto him. Concessions on dairy, on pharmaceuticals, caps on auto parts. This was a once-in-a-generation lifetime to renegotiate NAFTA. This is what Justin Trudeau came back with. It's unfortunate that he was not able to do what he said he was going to do. He promised, remember, he volunteered to reopen the negotiations on Canada's part, and then he promised he'd come back with a better NAFTA. He didn't promise to come back with as much as NAFTA as he could save. He promised to come back with a better NAFTA. And he came back with a weakened deal that leaves Canada worse off than the original NAFTA. Now, this was a once-in-a-lifetime, a once-in-a-generation shot at getting improvements to NAFTA. It is what it is at this point, but I will work very hard to, as Conservatives have in the past, deal with some of these issues on a one-off basis, specifically around lifting the caps off dairy exports. Imagine, what Justin Trudeau agreed to was a cap, a limit imposed by the Americans on what Canada sells other countries. That's without precedent. Agreeing not to sell dairy products to countries in the Middle East and Africa at the request of the Americans, ceding our sovereignty and our autonomy over our trading decisions. So that would be precisely one of the very first things I would raise with President Trump.
But would you ratify it?
As I said, it's a once-in-a-generation opportunity. This is the deal that he came back with. It's important that the Canadian economy has as much certainty as possible. Obviously, we're watching what's going on in the United States as to the ratification process there, and we would make a decision accordingly on our end. But for the sake of having certainty across the economy, the Canadian economy, this is the deal that Justin Trudeau came back with. Conservatives will work to improve aspects of the deal once we form government.
It's clear that Justin Trudeau did make extraordinary concessions to Mr. Trump. He accepted a cap on our dairy exports to other countries, which is unprecedented. And Conservatives will do what they've always done, which is to try and resolve the issues on one-by-one basis.
Mr. Garneau tweeted a video today showing you sitting down during the playing of O Canada in the House of Commons. One, why were you sitting down? And two, what do you think of the Liberals tweeting out this video just days ahead of an election?
Well, at the time, the Liberals were using our national anthem for a political statement. I will take no lessons from Mark Garneau on standing up for our veterans or for our men and women in uniform. This is a guy who sat around the cabinet table knowing what Justin Trudeau was doing to Mark Norman, knowing that Justin Trudeau was telling veterans that they were asking for more than he could give. So I will take no lessons from Mark Garneau about respect for our armed forces and for the men and women who serve in it.
Hello, Christy Kirkup with the Globe and Mail. In your assessment, is it ethical for the Manning Centre to put out a fundraising call and then pass that money on to third-party groups?
Well, look, I expect every organization in Canada to live up to the law, to live up to the laws that exist to ensure that Canadians have transparency. I will note that when you look at groups like Engage Canada, Lead Now, and other types of organizations who have spent untold amounts of money helping to support NDP and Liberal candidates, there certainly is a lot of activity with that type of thing.
And I'm just wondering, if you were to become Prime Minister, what specific steps would you take to close that loophole in the law that allows outside groups to raise money and then pass it on to third-party groups?
Well, we were calling on this Liberal government to do more to block illegal foreign money from entering into Canada's advocacy groups. We called their attention to a number of areas where there are loopholes in this law that allow organizations with presences in Canada and other countries to move money back and forth. That's certainly an area that we would tighten up.
Michael Couture with Global National. During this campaign, you've tried to grow your voter base as much as possible. Polls are showing you're just not succeeding at this point. How do you feel that you have to rely on a split between the progressive vote with the NDP and Liberals to actually possibly have a path to power?
We have overwhelming support and growing momentum. One of the most common phrases our candidates report hearing at the doors is a voter who answers the door and says, "I voted Liberal in 2015, I'm voting Conservative in 2019. And I am very confident that you are going to see our vote totals and our seat totals increase on election night, and we're going to get that majority Conservative government because Canadians know now that the choice is very clear between an NDP Liberal coalition, where the NDP will be calling the shots, but Justin Trudeau will be the spokesperson for it. And the NDP are calling for massive tax hikes, massive deficits that will threaten our economy and mean more and more of your tax dollar goes to pay just the interest on that debt. So that is the crystal clear choice, and I'm very confident that Canadians don't want an NDP Liberal coalition. They will vote for a Conservative majority.
I'm very confident that Canadians do not want an NDP Liberal coalition and that they will vote for a majority Conservative government.
Oh, no applause on that one, eh? Sorry. So we have spoken to pollsters who say, quote, every vote the NDP gets increases the likelihood that Andrew Scheer is going to win this election. How does it feel that you have to rely on a vote split just to form government?
I can tell you, as I said, order. That's the former speaker coming out of me. I can tell you, as I said, we have candidates that are reporting double the amount of volunteers that they had in 2015. They are raising money. I've had candidates tell me that they've run out of signs twice this election campaign because the momentum is building. People are tired of a scandalous, corrupt Liberal government, and the prospect that it might get re-elected by the NDP propping it up in a coalition between the NDP and the Liberals is meaning even more voters are coming to a Conservative, supporting a Conservative majority government. Canadians are tired of seeing their tax dollars wasted. They're tired of working so hard but falling further and further behind. And they see in our platform a real plan to help them get ahead, to leave more money in their pockets so they can live out their dreams and achieve their goals. And they see the NDP Liberal coalition promising massive deficits and massive tax hikes to pay for it. That is the choice this election, and I'm confident Canadians will vote for a majority Conservative government.
Stephanie Levitz, the Canadian Press. Mr. Scheer, in the past you've phrased your attacks against Justin Trudeau as him having lost the moral authority to govern. And I'm wondering, from where do you find the moral authority to govern? What does that mean?
Well, I believe when you look Canadians in the eye and you tell them something that you knew was false, when you attempt to politically interfere in a criminal court proceeding, when you use the power of your office to shut down inquiries, I believe that at that point you've lost the moral authority to govern. Ultimately, it's in the hands of voters, and they'll make that choice on October 21st.
Today, as part of your announcement, you're promising greater accountability and transparency in government. So I'm wondering if you could please be transparent with Canadians. When you traveled to the U.S. in past years, which passport did you use? Your special government passport, your American passport, or a Canadian passport?
So I've answered this question before. I have not had an American passport as an adult. I have not renewed it as an adult. I've only traveled on my Canadian passport. I've always provided the documents that were requested of me. And when I was on official government business, was Speaker of the House of Commons, I had a special passport. But for personal, I had a Canadian, the regular blue one. No. Let's keep it civil. Let's keep it on issues. Let's not go there.
Bonjour, Monsieur Scheer, Philippe Vincent Fauzy de Radio-Canada.
Radio-Canada.
J'aimerais savoir, vous avez fait campagne
I'd
avec
like to
Monsieur
know,
Kenny,
you've
par exemple, avec
been
Monsieur
campaigning
Higgs
with
au
Mr.
Nouveau-Brunswick.
Higgs and
Par
Mr.
contre,
Kenny,
chaque fois qu'on est en Ontario, vous avez
but
jamais
every
fait
time when you're in
campagne avec
Ontario,
Monsieur Ford,
you
qu'on a
don't
presque
campaign
pas
with
vu.
Mr.
On va le voir
Ford. We
tantôt.
practically
Pourquoi
have not
ne pas
seen him.
l'avoir
We will
vu au
see
moins
him
une
soon.
fois, ne pas avoir fait
Why
campagne
didn't
avec
you
lui au moins
campaign
une
with
fois
him
cette
at
année?
least once? Are you embarrassed? Mr. Ford made the decision to remain focused on provincial issues, and he has a lot of work to do following the governments of Kathleen Wynne and Dalton McGuinty. And I can tell you as well that our candidates across Ontario have said that voters have never asked our candidates
politicien provincial fait la campagne avec vous?
Why the provincial premier is not campaigning with you? Nobody has ever asked us that question.
I can tell you that Premier Ford has indicated that he's focused on provincial issues. He's got a lot of work to do to clean up the mess from the Dalton McGuinty, Kathleen Wynne governments here in Ontario. He's focused on that. And I can tell you, our candidates running for us in Ontario, have told me that not once have they ever got a question at the doors from a voter asking which provincial politicians are campaigning with you.
But at the same time, why did you not campaign with him at least once? Because Mr. Kenny came to Ontario. Why didn't you even see Mr. Ford? Mr. Ford made the decision to remain focused on provincial issues.
CBC News. Under a new Conservative government, will the Department of National Defence be exempt from cuts? And if so, does your party intend to follow the Liberals with a plan to increase defence spending to a $32 billion annual allocation by 2024?
So I've been very transparent with Canadians on where we're going to get the money to pay for our very popular tax cuts and tax credits. We are going to cut corporate welfare by at least $1.5 billion. We're going to reduce the foreign aid budget by 25%, so Canadian tax dollars don't go to countries that don't need it or regimes that don't deserve it. We're going to end the practice of March Madness, where government departments spend hundreds of millions of dollars on new phones, new chairs, new tables and desks, just to blow their budgets at the end of the fiscal year. We are committed to the funding allocated to the Department of National Defence. We will not do what the Liberals did, which is waste hundreds of millions of dollars, stopping and starting the procurement process, canceling the process, buying 40-year-old jets from Australia. They have wasted so much money when it comes to procurement. We're going to do procurement right, and we're going to make sure our men and women in our armed forces have the equipment they need to do the job that is asked of them.
But just to clarify, you can't guarantee cuts to national defence?
We will not be cutting anything that provides service to Canadians. We're going to protect the budgets of national defence. We're going to ensure that the money that's allocated to national defence is spent wisely, is spent on equipment, on our men and women in the armed forces. We won't do what the Liberals did, which is cut services to our armed forces, where they tried to take away extra pay, and recently we've learned the cuts to the medical services that they receive. We are going to protect we're going to ensure that our men and women in uniform get the respect and the support they need from this government.
Okay. And just on another subject, as Prime Minister, would you begin the work necessary to preserve and secure 24 Sussex Drive, and would you move in as Prime Minister?
Well, my plan is to do whatever is the most cost-effective, whatever the NCC recommends, to ensure that taxpayers' dollars are respected and the security needs of the RCMP are respected. I do generally believe that our heritage buildings should be kept up, and that they are not there for any one particular person. They are there for all Canadians and for the office that holds. But I would do so in a way that always gets the best bang for our buck as taxpayers. Oui. Alors, je vais faire une décision basée sur
yes, I will make a decision based on the NCC and the RCMP to ensure that we can respect taxpayers' money and meet security needs. I always have believed that these are heritage buildings that need to be protected because they're not for the individual, they're for all Canadians to have these historic buildings maintained. But I always want to respect taxpayers' money.
Mr. Scheer, Peter Langell, AM 800 News. You've talked about cutting 25% of foreign aid. A lot of that money goes to food that is sent overseas. A lot of that food comes from farmers like here in Essex. Will you make sure that the 25% cut doesn't affect Canadian farmers?
What we've said is that countries that have relatively high ranking on the development index, countries that are relatively well-off, middle and high-income countries, should not be receiving taxpayers' dollars. And we're going to keep those tax dollars here at home and offer them to Canadians in the form of tax relief. We are committed to supporting our agricultural sector. I come from a riding where about 50% of my riding is based on agriculture, rural-urban blended riding. So I have a lot of cattle, grains, and oilseeds. So I'm very aware of the challenges that are facing our agricultural producers, and we will always stand with them to make sure that they have the programs that support them.
Quick follow-up, totally different issue. You have 3 candidates locally. 2 of them are in play in local ridings. How does that feel for the first time in 100 years?
I can tell you it feels great to travel to parts of this country where we have not traditionally won, and to feel the momentum and to feel the opportunity that is there. We are going to surprise Canadians all over this country. It started a little while ago when we won a by-election in Quebec that we hadn't won in over 20 years in Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord, and we are going to do that in so many areas all across this country. I wouldn't write off any riding for the Conservative Party of Canada because Canadians are going to choose. They see the choice in front of them. It is a very clear choice. It is an NDP Liberal coalition on the one hand that is offering massive deficits and higher taxes to pay for it, an even more expensive cost of living, and a Conservative government that will get back to balanced budgets over a responsible period of time, lower taxes, and leave more money in the pockets of Canadians.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks very much, everyone. Good? Okay, thanks very much. Thanks very much. You bet. Thank you. Woo! Thanks very much, everyone. Let's finish strong.